First Nations chief in Alberta are frustrated with the province and Premier Danielle Smith. They disagree with the decision to hold a referendum question on separation, and they've outlined their concerns in a letter. The CBC's Julia Wong is on the story. She joins us live from Edmonton. So Julia, Treaty 8 chiefs spoke with reporters today about their letter. What did they say?
Yes, that press conference wrapped up not too long ago, and during that press conference they really doubled down on their opposition to this referendum on a referendum that the province is holding on whether Alberta should stay in Canada or should then vote, or whether Albertans should vote in a binding referendum on whether or not to leave. So this has been something that First Nations chiefs have spoken a lot about over the last few months as we've been on this journey, and they just this morning released this open letter to the Premier, and it voices a couple different things, concerns about suggestions that she's made about revisiting Section 35 of the Constitution, which reaffirms treaty rights. They've also pushed back on comments she's made about the duty to consult and how she thinks that only applies to major projects, and they say categorically that is wrong. In the letter, they really outline their concern with what could happen. I just want to read a portion of it. They say Alberta's separation as currently proposed would carve an international border through the heart of Treaty 8 territory without the free, prior, and informed consent of the nations whose ancestors signed that treaty. This would not merely breach a constitutional provision, it would rupture a solemn promise recognized under Canadian law that predates Alberta and violates the integrity of our people's lands and rights as recognized under international law. So the chiefs who spoke today expressed a lot of concern about this upcoming vote that will happen in the fall. They say there have been no conversations with the Premier, there have been no conversations with the Indigenous Relations Minister, and they say that what they're trying to do is trying to protect their people, they're trying to protect treaty rights, and we asked them, what has all of this done to your relationship with the province? Is there still trust with the province? And this is what they had to say.
Trust is fundamentally ruined here in Alberta when it comes to First Nations in the province of Alberta. But not just our people, many others as well. We have deep concern. We have been trying to address this issue of non-confidence with the UCP government over time, and it seems as if they feel that the relationship with our First Nations people is not important, and it's really inhibiting any type of business, any type of reconciliation, any type of moving forward here in Alberta.
The chiefs also say they do plan to mobilize ahead of this vote. They say they plan to try and get the word out there to organize and ensure people, including First Nations, do vote. And they also say they're open to working with Federalist groups who are also campaigning for Alberta to stay in the country.
So what happens if things keep going down this path?
Yeah, that's a really big question here, and that was something definitely of note during the press conference, because in this open letter to the Premier, there's a demand for the province to stop moving forward with this referendum without the full consultation or consent of the Treaty 8 First Nations. So the question posed to them was, what happens if not? What is the or else? And what we were told was all options are on the table. The chief said that there are different ways that they may be able to intervene to try to get their message across, and they say that does include civil disobedience.
There's many tactics that we can use. There's many areas that we can intervene. Industries in our territories. The resources belong to our nations. How does Alberta expect to move forward as they say, sovereign, when all of the resources and lands belong to the treaty people? When we say that we'll take a look at all avenues, that means stopping industry. That means maybe going out on the highways. That maybe means doing what we need to do to be heard.
And we have reached out to the Premier's office to get a response to this letter and to the concerns that are outlined in it. And as of right now, we have not heard back, but we will bring that to you as soon as we get it.
Julia, thank you. The CBC's Julia Wong live in Edmonton. We're now joined by a Treaty 8 chief who helped write that letter. Sheldon Sunshine is the chief of Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. He joins us live from Edmonton. Chief, appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So how hopeful are you that Premier Danielle Smith will do, as you ask in the letter, halt the process toward a separation referendum and begin consulting with Treaty 8 First Nations?
I think we've seen over the past year or so that our hope is there's no hope for her to change direction. We've seen accommodation time and time again. I think Grand Chief used the term moving the goalpost, and it's no different.
It's no different. Now, one of the concerns is that Premier Smith seems to be prioritizing the preferences of the provincial government over the rights of First Nations. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, again, we've seen it over and over again, starting with the Sovereignty Act and all the successive legislations after that. It is a direct attack on our treaty rights. And I think that more and more people are getting educated today on what treaty really means, and if there's a bright light, that's the one thing that more people are understanding what that relationship is. It can't be just canceled by a government that feels that they shouldn't have any obligations to it.
You raised concerns that in independent Alberta, it would cut through your traditional territory. There would be international borders kind of right through it. What kind of impact could that have on your communities?
It'll have a huge impact on a lot of the First Nations treaty territory. Our Treaty 8 goes into Saskatchewan, into BC, into Northwest Territories. Our people have utilized the land for millennia to hunt and harvest and sustain themselves, and having a international border through it will affect us a great deal.
Can you imagine a scenario where Danielle Smith does do proper consultation with Treaty 8 First Nations ahead of a potential referendum on separating from Canada, in which you might accept that consultation has taken place?
I haven't seen any indication over the last several months that they're even willing to sit down and have a discussion. With the separatist talk, it's basically just a smokescreen. There's so many serious things going on within healthcare, education, undermining the rule of law, undermining the police. So, I don't think that there's any, there will be any attempt to have that conversation.
Do you think that this referendum is illegal? And if you do, what else could you do? I know that the Grand Chief talked about some civil disobedience, perhaps, but is there a potential court challenge to just having the referendum in the first place?
Yeah, we're weighing our options. We're doing the analysis on it, and there will be multiple actions, I'm sure, whether it's legal or civil disobedience or protest. We've seen the one with the labor unions last week. It was a good turnout there in Edmonton, but I think there's going to be more of that. I think Albertans should be really concerned about where we're headed. To talk about prosperity and business, and how are these going to impact those developments. If we're not even getting treated fairly when it comes to consultation, what is the expectation for us to agree to some of these projects that are being proposed in our territories?
The Grand Chief said today that the Premier's actions have been inciting racism. What have you been noticing in your community?
We have been noticing a significant increase in racism. Online, there is so blatant racism. It is really hard to stay on some of those social media sites for some of our people. They're getting engaged in some of this conversation. We try to encourage them to stay away from that, so that don't give them any reason to continue being racist. But we've heard been several death threats for Chief Alan Adam. And those are very serious times for First Nation people. We've had a staff member of Treaty 8 being followed and harassed because she had the signage of the Treaty First Nation organization on their truck. You know, it's getting to a point where, and this is just the beginning, where it's going to get worse and worse, and potentially there's going to be some people harmed.
I sure hope that doesn't happen. Chief, appreciate though you spending the time talking to us. Thank you. That was Chief Sheldon Sunshine of the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation.
Thanks for having me.